Test is sponsored by We Are Wrestling. You can find
Make sure to subscribe, baby.
What is up? We are wrestling maniacs out there worldwide. I'm the host, the best one, Donnie, here with...
What's going on, everybody? Donnie's co-host for We Are Wrestling, Danny Huckins here, man. We have a very special episode today for you guys, the We Are Wrestling maniacs.
That's right. Something that we haven't really done yet on the We Are Wrestling talk show, but we figured we might as well do this because this week the wrestling news was literally the shits. If you're not a We Are Wrestling maniac yet already, the best way to support this channel is by hitting that subscribe button now, turning on the post notifications, videos be coming out of nowhere like an RKO, and of course you already know, the grind is real. And this week, we are going to be doing a blast from the past, where Danny and I are going to be giving our overall opinion on the 2002 WWE Draft Lottery, because this draft took place 20 years ago in 2002. We are in 2022 now, so, we're going to give our opinion and look back and, maybe see some surprises like, Trish Stratus being picked up later on in the draft, Terry got picked over her, Christian being in the 30s and the 40s. We're going to review it all from 1 to 57 right here on the We Are Wrestling talk show. I really hope you guys enjoy this special Blast from the Past episode. Since, Roman just won both the Universal and the WWE Championship, since they unified them, we know we have strong beliefs that they should end the brand split. We want to go back into time to 2002 and go over the WWE draft when Ric Flair was the GM of Raw and Vince McMahon was the GM of SmackDown. We want to go back and we want to kind of give just a summary of each guy that got drafted and, what we think about it in 2022,
Exactly,
20
man.
years later.
In this episode of Monday Night Raw, this was the very first brand split in pro wrestling history. And the actual date is March 25th, 2002. So if you guys want to go on the WWE Network while we're talking about this, whatever, you guys can actually watch it in real time. Vince McMahon, who was the GM of SmackDown, he won the coin toss to determine who would receive the very first draft pick. And the very first pick that he chose for SmackDown back in 2002 was The Rock. How do you feel like that played out for the SmackDown brand?
I think that it planned out pretty well. I think The Rock, literally he created the term laying the smack down. So having The Rock be the first pick, I think was really good, especially around this time. He was the biggest star that they had because, he had that iconic main event with Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 17. Or WrestleMania 18, I apologize for that. And I know around the time Rock was starting to move on to Hollywood and stuff. And then, of course, a year later, he went on Raw. So it didn't really plan out the way that they wanted it to. But hey, I think Rock being the number one pick was, the best thing at the time.
Man. Do you wanna announce what the second pick of that draft lottery was?
Yep, I will. So I say, you go SmackDown, I'll go Raw.
It, man.
How's that? So now, with the second overall pick in this draft, Raw selected The Undertaker. And around the time The Undertaker was pissed off.
Once Ric Flair announced The Undertaker, you could see he took the glasses off. I think he threw a chair. He kicked open the door, and then you just heard his classic "Rollin', Rollin', Rollin'" music by Limp Bizkit. I almost had a brain fart there, man.
Hey,
I almost had a brain fart there, man. But I feel like Undertaker was definitely, he was already in the business 12 years at that point. He was, that was a little bit after the whole Brother in Destruction, a little bit after that. Yeah, a
This is
little bit
my
after
yard.
that, he ended up winning the undisputed championship, and he was able to go back and forth to SmackDown, Raw. He ended up cutting his hair or whatever, and then in late 2002, he had that classic ladder match with Jeff Hardy. It was fucking phenomenal, man. What do you remember from Taker back in 2002?
Man, Undertaker, I know, was putting on great matches. I remember a lot of his matches with Brock Lesnar. Those were great matches, with the Hell in the Cell and the Last Man Standing. Really awesome. I think, Undertaker's been more known for his work on SmackDown. I get why they had him, be the number one pick for Raw, but hey, The Undertaker, he had some really good matches when he went to Raw, especially with
Yeah,
Jeff Hardy, like
definitely.
you said.
So the third overall pick in the 2002 draft lottery was from Ric Flair, or from Vince McMahon. I apologize. And we have Kurt Angle as the second overall pick for SmackDown. And Kurt Angle was red hot, and it did make sense because of how close Kurt Angle was since his debut with Vince McMahon. He was sort of like Vince McMahon's stooge in a way. You know what I mean? He did Vince McMahon's dirty work, especially when it came to like Stone Cold Steve Austin and other guys of that time period. Um, I think that was a phenomenal choice, man. What do you think?
I think that was the best move for Kurt Angle. I really enjoyed his work on SmackDown, and I think the thing that we can definitely look back 20 years later was Raw was more of like the stars, but SmackDown had more of the better wrestling. And I think having Kurt Angle on SmackDown was a great move. Obviously, he had the Team Angle thing. He was putting on classics
Hmm.
with Brock Lesnar and, also some pretty good stuff with the Big Show as well. And, of course, John Cena as well. You can't forget that. Kurt Angle, I thought that was a great pick for
Absolutely, man.
SmackDown. So now moving on to Raw with the fourth pick overall, they selected the NWO, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and X
I
Pac.
mean, that was a couple of months after they made their debut. NWO, when NWO first came into WWE at No Way Out, 2002, I believe it was. They definitely left an impact. They had good feuds with Steve Austin. They, took a big tractor trailer truck or whatever and ran into an ambulance that supposedly had The Rock in it. They spray painted NWO on The Rock's back, and obviously that led to Austin and Scott Hall and Hogan versus The Rock at WrestleMania 18, which was fucking phenomenal. What do you remember from the NWO when they first debuted in WWE?
It was awesome, to see the NWO, obviously, as a kid, because of that. Like, I grew up mostly on Ruthless Aggression, but I got into wrestling late Attitude Era. And with the NWO, obviously, they had a crazy impact with WCW. And going into Raw, it's unfortunate that it didn't really work out well with WWE. Yes, it worked out well with like No Way Out to WrestleMania, but then after that pop that Hulk Hogan got at that Mania, like it was just like obvious, like they wanted Hulk Hogan back to red and yellow. And it's just unfortunate because obviously Scott Hall wasn't
Yep.
at his A game around this time. He had some, substance abuse problems and he ended up getting released, I believe, in the summer of 2002. So it never really worked
Yeah,
out,
definitely.
unfortunately.
So the fifth pick overall is from SmackDown, Vince McMahon, and it was the third pick. It was a fifth pick overall, but it was a third pick for SmackDown, and it was Chris Benoit. But the funny part about this is, drafted while recovering from a neck surgery, Benoit made his WWE return on the Raw brand instead. So he got drafted to SmackDown, but he got traded to Raw while he was still recovering from a neck injury.
Damn, that man was a high pick too. They could have friggin' had other people
It
at that
it
pick.
does not
Damn,
say who
crazy.
it does not say who he got traded for, so I can't go over that or whatever.
Probably a bag of
Probably. Chris
chips.
Benoit was a phenomenal athlete. I don't really want to waste time really talking about him because of obviously we know what happened.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I his work was better on SmackDown in his career, better more than Raw. We can definitely move on. So now with the sixth pick with this WWE draft, Raw selected
Kane was
Kane.
red hot, man. He was a couple of months after he got drafted to Raw. I remember he instead of having the full face, he had like, his mouth or whatever area was like cut out so he'd be able to talk, and he started to get better on the microphone. He had a long partnership with Rob Van Dam back in like 2002 to 2003.
Which created that
Yep,
great
in
feud in
2003, I think,
2003.
is when Rob Van Dam and Kane fought each other, and if Kane lost, he had to unmask himself, and that for the rest of his career, pretty much, except for like in 2013 or whatever, when the Shield came in, he would like go back and forth from wearing no mask to wearing a mask again. But overall, 2003 was like the last half a year that he had, like he was known as the Demon Kane.
Yeah, and I think definitely this was a great decision by WWE Creative putting him on Raw because it definitely made Kane's character stand out. Because, like I said before, SmackDown was more known for the wrestling side of things, and Raw was more known for the characters and, like the superstars. And Kane definitely, evolved, definitely stepped up his game, especially, going from being in a mask to being unmasked, one of the most scariest Kanes. I remember, him versus Shane McMahon at, Survivor Series '03. Also, his rivalry with The Undertaker, bringing back the Dead Man for,
Mhm.
Mania 20. This was a great move for WWE because I just remember so much memories with Kane on Raw, like him and Snitsky, with him punting the baby into the crowd. Kane just had a lot of
Yeah,
awesome moments
absolutely.
on Raw.
I do wanna ask you this before we move on. Seeing as Kane, he had a long time partnership with X-Pac as well back in, the Attitude Era, whatever. But I feel like, Rob Van Dam, even though he was a little bit taller than X-Pac, I feel like they were almost in the same category athletic-wise. What partnership do you prefer? Did you prefer Kane back in, like, the early 2000s with X-Pac, or do you prefer him with Rob Van Dam?
I have to say Rob Van Dam only
Yeah.
because the payoff was
Yeah, I
better.
definitely agree. All right, man. So the seventh overall pick of the 2002 draft and the fourth pick for SmackDown, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Therefore,
You know something? Wait, real quick. You want to know something like
what
really cool about that? So, speaking of Hollywood Hulk Hogan, I actually been starting to watch the new WWE
I
documentary
haven't.
series,
Is that good? I
Evil,
haven't seen it
and
yet.
I actually I actually just watched the first episode with Hulk
Is it
Hogan
good?
last night. It's actually really
I'll have
yeah,
to
it's
check that
actually
out.
really good. I just wanted to put that
But
out there. Okay, as you were
this
saying.
ultimately caused Hulk Hogan obviously to split away from the NWO. But if I remember correctly, I believe it was a couple months later that NWO ended up switching to SmackDown because in 2000 was it 2002 or 2001 is when they started feuding with Austin. I think it was 2002 when
Yeah, no,
yeah when
it was 2002 because they had the Turner deal in '01, so it
Austin
was never a
kidnapped
thing.
Scott Hall and kept him in a freezer in the backstage area. Yeah.
Yeah, because they wrestled at
So,
18.
yeah, Hulk Hogan, number 4 pick, 7 overall. He got drafted to SmackDown. I think it was a pretty good choice. Didn't really make much sense. He should have kept him on Raw and then, part of NWO, and then obviously had all of NWO go to SmackDown. But I didn't totally mind it.
Yeah. Well, because around the time, I think they wanted him to split from the NWO because they wanted the old Hulk Hogan back, because that's what like the fans, that's what they wanted clearly at Mania 18. If
It was a
you know
couple
look
months
at the crowd
later.
and
It was a couple
stuff.
months later. Sorry,
I
I didn't
think
mean to cut you off. It was a couple months later to where Hulk Hogan started feuding with Undertaker. And remember that classic scene where Undertaker tied Hogan to the back of his motorcycle and started dragging him around the arena?
I do remember that. Also, I remember his Mr.
Yeah, he wore a
America
mask or
character
whatever.
as
Apparently,
well.
Hulk Hogan got banned from, WWE or whatever. And so he, came up with this character, Mr. America.
And he had a tag team championship run with Edge as well, which was a
That
fun
that
little
I
team
mean,
they had.
2002 was just a great year overall, man.
Yeah. So now moving on to the next draft pick with the number 8th pick overall, Raw selected Rob Van Dam. And around the time he was the WWF Intercontinental Champion, making the championship exclusive to
Yeah, man.
Monday
Rob
nights.
Van Dam was a great Intercontinental Champion. He had a great Intercontinental Championship ladder match with Jeff Hardy on Monday Night Raw, which was a classic. I mean, in almost every video package, they always show clips of that match. And then I believe he was the Intercontinental Champion as well as one half of the Tag Team Champions when he started teaming with Kane. So I think that was a great move.
Yeah, you know the funny thing about Rob Van Dam was always when I feel like every draft he would always get traded. Like he would go from Raw one year to SmackDown, SmackDown to Raw, and then
Yeah,
ECW.
and
I thought that
and
that was always kind of funny. But I think that this overall though was, I think, a great move, because yes, we all knew how great Rob Van Dam was in the ring, and like I know I said SmackDown was more for the wrestlers, Raw was for more the characters. But you had to throw in mixes here and there, and I think Rob Van Dam going the Raw definitely developed his
absolutely.
character more than what would have happened on SmackDown. So I think them making this decision in '02 definitely paid off
And
for Rob Van
if I
Dam
remember
years later.
correctly, I believe once Rob Van Dam got traded, got put on Raw, and the Intercontinental Championship got exclusive rights to be on Raw. I believe ever since then the IC title's been up until recently. Obviously, the IC title was exclusive to Raw up until a couple years ago.
For the most part, it was exclusive to Raw, which I did like a lot better when Intercontinental was
Yeah,
Raw,
it
United
just made
States was
more sense or
SmackDown.
whatever. All right, man.
I'm
Of
excited
course you
about
are.
this
The
one.
ninth overall draft pick in the 2002 draft, the number 5th pick for Vince McMahon as well as SmackDown, Billy and Chuck. And
You look
don't ever say
so
that to me
good
again.
to me.
When drafted, Billy and Chuck were the WWF Tag Team Champions, making the titles exclusive to SmackDown. In addition, Billy and Chuck's manager, Rico, went along with them in the draft.
Oh,
Yeah, he was
Rico,
like
he was
that.
great.
Who's that workout guy that was on all the videos back then? Simmons something.
Before we get
And
copywritten.
it was classic, man. Everybody, remember they had the wedding ceremony between them two?
I love the Billy and Chuck. That was one of the best, like, odd tag teams in WWE history. I loved it. Especially, like, how Rico was trying to, like, make them, like, a couple, and then they just wanted to be just, like, the best, like, tag team
It's
champions.
almost like
It
Rico.
was just
It's almost like Rico.
hilarious. Like, that
It's almost
was
like Rico made them
beautiful
gay.
storytelling.
They weren't gay before, but they hinted at it, and then Rico was like, "Come on, guys, you guys are this close."
It was so that was like over the top with Billy and Chuck. I loved it. It made such great television. And overall, like I felt like the group, it kind of like ended a little bit too early. I just, I enjoyed
Yes.
Billy and Chuck a lot. So now moving on to the next pick with the 10th pick overall, Raw selected Booker
I
T.
believe, if I remember correctly, I believe he was on Raw before the draft, and then he remained on Monday Night Raw. If I remember correctly, Because I think he was on Raw and up until like maybe like he was like the King Booker era, I think. Um,
No, it was he was with Raw until I believe 2004, and then he
oh,
got traded to SmackDown. Because I remember him trying
oh
to
yeah.
go for
Hey
JBL's
man, your
title.
memory's better than me. Um, Overall, I liked what Booker T did. Back then he wasn't like that much of a major star. He just was sort of like this random WCW guy or whatever. He was like WCW champion. But unless you were like a heavy into WCW, I mean that really didn't matter all that much. But he over the years, man, he's definitely proved himself to be a worthy WWE competitor.
Yeah, I think, his stuff with Raw was pretty entertaining. We had the rivalry with Triple H that never really worked out. The payoff definitely, didn't help Booker whatsoever. But the stuff I thought that he did some really like that was another fun odd tag team was Booker T and Goldust. I remember, us talking about that on the night 2 recap there about Booker and the whole Goldust thing. That was very fun, and I really enjoyed that. But I feel like Booker did a lot more in his WWE career with SmackDown, of course, with the King Booker.
Exactly, man. 11th overall draft pick from 2002, the 6th pick for SmackDown. We get he wasn't the rated R superstar yet, but he was Edge, man.
Never gonna stop me. Never gonna stop.
Hey, man, I miss that theme song, man.
Me too. That was awesome. It always got me pumped up.
So, what do you remember Edge from back in 2002? It was after he stopped teaming with Christian, I believe, in late 2001.
I definitely remember him cutting Kurt Angle's hair. I do remember that. And it's crazy how like Edge started his career off with SmackDown, and then eventually, with after the next stuff, he went to Raw, became WWE champion, and then like the table everything like went full circle, and he went back to SmackDown, and like that's where he was mostly known for.
Yep. Edge back then, man, like he still had hints of his personality on his goofy style or whatever. But I feel like it wasn't until after he went solo, he started to become more of a serious competitor. You know what I mean?
The matches that Edge was putting on in 2002 were so good, and I think him going to SmackDown, because we all knew Edge had the characters, like he had the character, we all were invested in Edge, but the wrestling side of things, we never really got to see what Edge can do as a singles competitor. So for WWE to really put him on a brand with SmackDown against like Eddie Guerrero
Mhm.
and like really good wrestlers, I think made Edge into the rated R superstar.
He had a good feud with Big Show, if I remember correctly, back in the day too.
He just had a lot of great work on SmackDown.
Definitely, man. So that was a great choice, especially being draft pick number 6. That was awesome, man.
Yeah, and like at first it didn't really work out for him, but then like he went to Raw, became a friggin' main event guy, and then he literally went back to SmackDown where he got drafted. I think that that's really cool.
Yep. And
So now moving.
the next pick is yours, and we just mentioned this fucking
That's
guy's
right.
name. So
Yes, we did. With the 12th pick overall, Raw selected. Well, it's the Big Show.
the big slow.
And it's so weird that like Raw picked him because I feel like he did so much more with SmackDown. Because like, wasn't it like a year later that Big Show was fighting Brock Lesnar and stuff on SmackDown, or was that in 2002? No, that was 2002. He wrestled Brock for the title, so it's like he didn't even stay on Raw that long.
I know. Well, you have to remember the draft lottery was in March, so it was only the second or third month into 2002. There's a lot of time in between.
Yeah, because I think around the time like they probably had plans for the Big Show, but I remember if I recall he was having a lot of issues with like his weight and his attitude, so they like sent him to OVW for quite a bit, and then he I think returned to the SmackDown brand
Yeah, man.
later that year.
I still remember I still remember Big Show as Captain Insano from fucking Waterboy. Remember that?
Yeah,
But the next draft pick, man, this is the overall number 13 pick, SmackDown number 7, Rikishi, man. I did it for The Rock.
Hey, let's
I did
go.
it for the people.
Man, I'm excited. I'm actually going to be meeting Rikishi next month. Or actually, no, I'm going to be meeting Rikishi in a couple weeks. Shit.
You are.
Yep, I'm going to be going to the Wrestling Classic too. I'm actually going to be able to meet him, which I'm very excited about because he was one of my favorites as a kid.
That's
So I think this was a good move for SmackDown. I know Rikishi had a lot of momentum around this time because, of course, he was the one that ran Stone Cold Steve Austin over at the Survivor Series a couple years prior to this.
Yep.
And Rikishi, I believe, he was always just around this time. Like, he wasn't a main event guy, but he was a mid-card guy. And I think him and Scotty 2 Hotty had a pretty cool tag team run. And the work that he did with John Cena when he was the Thugonomics, I thought was really fun on SmackDown.
I feel like Rikishi's popularity started to pop off at Armageddon 2000 when Undertaker fucking chokeslammed him and he fell into the bed of hay in the back of that truck.
Yeah, I feel like, man, Rikishi going to SmackDown, I think he's always been like a SmackDown guy. So I think that was a good pick.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah. So now moving on to the 14th pick overall, Raw selected Bubba Ray Dudley, splitting up the Dudley boys.
Yeah, this was before obviously Devon, when they got split up. Bubba did singles.
The Dudleys.
Yeah, Bubba did singles on Raw, which I think a couple months afterwards he started teaming up with Spike, on a regular basis or whatever. And then Devon was on SmackDown, and believe it or not, Devon, that's the first.
Oh, brother, testify.
That's the first time we saw Batista because he was like the Lutheran when Devon was doing the
Reverend Devon.
Demon gimmick.
Oh my god. That was too good for its time. Like, if that was the 90s, he would have definitely won a friggin' world championship.
Exactly. And the thing about like having Batista a part of that, and he was like, the guy that held the basket or whatever, and he went around.
And the crazy thing is, Batista was more known for like, everyone talks about, like, they think that Batista's career started with Evolution, but it was with Devon on SmackDown. That's freaking crazy. Wow.
Yeah, his name, I don't think, was his name Batista? I think his name was something different because I remember, didn't he wear like contacts or something? He wasn't like the Batista that was like in Evolution.
Oh, he was like he was definitely bald. I remember that.
Yeah, he wasn't the Batista that
And
we
he had
know.
he had like the big like actual chain around his neck as well.
I think he wore like a black shirt with like a black dress shirt with cut off sleeves or whatever.
Yep, I remember that. Like, it reminds me of like young Harlan.
It was phenomenal, man. He was like,
yeah. So with Bubba Ray Dudley going to Raw, it definitely didn't pay off for Bubba Ray because they had more plans for Devon at the time, which is crazy because 20 years later we look back and Bubba Ray definitely had a better singles run as a wrestler than Devon with the Bully Ray character. So it's crazy how just like the Edge thing, like it goes full circle.
And before, it wasn't long after this. It was like a couple months, maybe the beginning of 2000, the end of 2002, the end of the beginning of 2003, to where the Dudleys reunited on Monday Night Raw. Because remember, they had that feud with Scott Steiner and somebody else.
No, here's what happened. I remember this exactly because I watched the series Ruthless Aggression on the network. And with the Dudleys, they actually made their return at the Survivor Series 2002 when they were back in Madison Square Gardens because they thought that would be the best way to bring back the Dudleys.
Yeah, wasn't Jeff Hardy in their team or whatever? He was wearing a white tank top with like some kind of like green pants or whatever.
Yes, I believe so. I think it was like a tables match actually.
Yeah.
Too. But yeah, so now if you want to get into the 15th pick.
But I remember the Dudleys teaming up whatever, and I remember they had a feud with I believe it was Scott Steiner and somebody else. I can't remember who Scott.
Test.
It might have been Test. Yeah,
It
'cause
was
I
Test.
remember I was at one of the shows or whatever, and they had a backstage segment or whatever at Mohegan Sun. That was pretty good stuff. So the 15th overall pick, the 8th pick for SmackDown, got a person that we had just referenced, Devon Dudley.
Yeah, which it's crazy, to see, I think that Revenant Devon character was too good for its time. And, it never really did anything, unfortunately. And, they decided to bring back the Dudleys as a Survivor Series. The Dudleys have just done a lot more, I feel like, on SmackDown than they did on Raw.
Yeah, but I feel like Devon, I don't feel like he got the kind of momentum in a singles competitor than Bubba. Bubba was always the more successful brother. Kind of like with the Hardys. I feel like Jeff was a little bit more successful than Matt. Edge was a little bit more successful than Christian. Just usually the way it goes, man.
Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty.
It usually always
Yeah.
happens during tag teams. But I remember Devon, like I said, he was a reverend gimmick. He brought in Batista as sort of his I don't go to church, so I don't know what, a deacon or something like that, or whatever you call it. I think Deacon Batista or something. His name was something along those lines. But
Yeah, I don't
he
really
was more of a
remember.
mid carder. And then obviously, he went back to Raw or whatever. Batista went back to OVW, and then in 2003, 2004, he came back to Monday Night Raw and
With
was part of
Evolution.
Evolution. So I feel like it definitely worked out.
Yeah, I definitely think so. It didn't work out their singles run in WWE, both of them, but it was really cool though to actually see them get back together at the Survivor Series. And of course, we all know, in 2005, I believe, or 2000. Yeah, no, it was 2004 or 2005. I think 2005. The Dudleys, they decided to go to TNA as Team 3D, and the rest was history. So now, moving on now to the 16th pick overall. Monday Night Raw selected Brock Lesnar, which meant Paul Heyman came along with him in the
It's
draft.
crazy to think how long Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar have been together. You know what I mean? In a managerial role. Brock Lesnar, I remember his first night on Raw. He demolished the Hardys. I remember that clear as day. And then they set up. I think all that summer the Hardys had a feud with Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar took out Matt Hardy for a while, and then it led to a SummerSlam match between Jeff, and he annihilated Jeff. And I feel like at that time the Hardys were red hot, so it definitely made Brock Lesnar a bigger star. You know what I mean? So
Brock was the rookie of the year.
definitely.
Man won the Rumble, King of the Ring, undisputed world champion. He had it
Remember
all
when
for a short period of
remember
time.
back in 2003 when he had the balls to steal Stone Cold Steve Austin's ATV, and Stone Cold Steve Austin had that went to SmackDown to retrieve it, and all the superstars on SmackDown, they act like they were on Brock's side or whatever, and then once they saw Austin, they moved out of the way so so Steve Austin could get to Brock Lesnar. That was such a great segment.
Yeah, and there was never really a payoff with the Brock versus Stone Cold thing because Stone Cold refused to job out to Brock as, Stone Cold should,
Mm.
which that's always going to be a what if, scenario in wrestling. But I think it's crazy that Rikishi and the Big Show and Booker T got drafted before friggin' Brock Lesnar. I think that's actually pretty crazy to
Yeah.
me. And it's crazy because I feel like Brock definitely around this time did a lot more with SmackDown than he did with Raw.
Well, you have to remember this was before Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar didn't debut until after he got drafted to Raw, I believe. He was on Raw, and then he went to SmackDown around late 2002, early 2003. So this was before his SmackDown run.
I think it was after. I think it was after he. This was after he beat The Rock at SummerSlam. That's when I think went to
He wasn't.
SmackDown because
He,
he had
he
that.
was.
He had that feud with
He wasn't at
Undertaker.
SummerSlam in 2001. This was before SummerSlam 2002.
No, 2002.
Yeah,
Yeah, they wrestled at SummerSlam 2002.
dude, this draft lottery happened in March. SummerSlam's not till summer.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying he went to SmackDown like after that SummerSlam
Yeah.
match.
So he
Yeah.
got drafted. This was before Brock Lesnar anybody knew who he was,
Yeah.
pretty much. But I mean, he did big things, man, when he first came in.
Yeah, and it's crazy because like he did a lot more with SmackDown, but it's crazy because it's just like Edge with the full circle thing. Because years later, after, dominating the UFC and the MMA world, he came back to WWE and he's been on Raw for the most part.
I remember, man, and you probably remember this too. It's probably more vivid in your mind than it is mine. But remember when Brock Lesnar tormented Zach Gowen, the guy with one leg, and he threw him he
Oh
threw
my
him down the
God.
fucking stairs, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, dude! Like this dude's dead."
Yeah. And then the FI, like to remember Rey Mysterio on the stretcher?
Yep. And then he fucking faced Zach Gowen in his hometown, and Zach Gowen's mom was in the front row, and he fucking F5'd Zach Gowen leg first into the ring post, and Zach Gowen's mom jumped over the barricade to see if her son was
Dude,
okay.
Zach Gallen was so
I
underrated.
know.
Such an underrated guy. I'm glad he's doing really good now for himself because I know around the time with WWE, I know he had like some substance problems, but now he's like been clean for
Yeah, he
years.
does a lot of indie bookings, y'all. It would be fucking lit if Jeremy could get him for
I would
Blitzkrieg.
love. Oh my god, I would love Zach Gallen to wrestle for
We
Blitzkrieg. Please, Jeremy, if you're watching this, make it
I
happen.
mean, you definitely got to bring it up at some point.
Oh, definitely for sure. But
The 17th,
yeah.
or do you want to keep going? Or what else do you have?
You're
The
good.
17th overall draft pick in the 2002 draft lottery was for SmackDown. The 9th pick, Mark Henry.
The world's strongest man, and it's crazy because he didn't really do much in 2002 and 2003 or even,
I don't feel
2004.
like Mark Henry real.
He did a lot more like in I think it was 2006. Like I think that's when he was more well known was when he, beat up Batista that time, remember?
Yeah, but I feel like it was like 2004, 2005. Remember almost every single episode of SmackDown, Test and the APA or whatever, and all these different superstars they were having Mark Henry prove that he was the world's strongest man. One episode they had him bend a frying pan. One episode they had him fucking pull like a fucking 18-wheeler truck. And I remember one episode, they had him like lean up against a brick wall, whatever, and put his feet on a car and have the car go full force to see if he could fucking prevent it from, moving. Remember that?
Yeah, and I remember doing all that. And then I think the biggest payoff for Mark Henry's career was definitely when, he took out Batista and then they had to vacate the world title. But I think with Mark Henry, because I know around the time they drafted him on SmackDown, he did a little bit more with Raw because I believe he was in a tag team with Teddy Long and Roddy Mack, I think
That
his
was
name
around that
was.
was around 2004, 2005. I don't feel like the first couple of years he was on SmackDown he really accomplished much. He was sort of there.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It wasn't until he did team up with Rodney Mack and Teddy Long or whatever, and that really like cemented him because
Hmm.
I mean,
But I think what really cemented Mark Henry was that Batista attack because then we got Mark versus Undertaker at WrestleMania and that great casket match. And then, Batista came back, got his revenge on Mark Henry. And then, of course, like, you know, after Ruthless Aggression, we saw Mark Henry even win the world championship back in 2011, 2012.
it's definitely weird to think that this is the same company that gives us the shit that they give us today, man.
It is absolutely crazy. But now moving forward with the 18th pick overall, Monday Night Raw selected William Regal. So during this draft, Regal was the WWF European Champion, which made the championship exclusive to Monday nights.
I mean, it seems like back in the 2000s draft, man, Monday Night Raw got all the championships. I wish they would bring back the European Championship. I feel like it would be a good fit. You know what I mean? I would like to see them bring back some of like the hardcore title, or whatever. It's the same concept as the fucking 24/7 title.
Yeah, but you have to realize it's PG, so instead of hitting people with barbed wire bats, they rather hit people with
Well,
noodles.
I'm not necessarily saying that you need to fucking be that hardcore, but I mean, having fucking backstage brawls or whatever, and seeing somebody fight at a fucking airport or a McDonald's like they did with Crash. Remember when Crash Holly was a hardcore champion?
Oh, that was the
They
best
fucking
stuff.
he almost got beat in the fucking the playground or whatever in a fucking McDonald's. Remember that?
Yeah. No, that was kind of like an Adventureland, like Chuck E.
Oh, yep,
Cheese.
yep. That was
Oh,
classic
that was
stuff.
so much
But
fun.
William Regal,
Yeah.
he's always been good at what he does. And this was obviously after he got taken out of control. He used to be the GM for Raw, along with, he used to have his sidekick Tajiri, which I really fucking loved. I love the pairing between William Regal and Tajiri. I believe he only held the title for like 2 more months, and then he ended up losing it. I can't remember offhand to who, but I remember he wasn't European
Yeah.
champion that much longer after he got drafted.
Yeah, and like I know like Regal, like he's always been really good with the ring. I know a lot of the momentum started to go away when he lost that commissioner position, which that was my favorite William Regal in WWE was definitely the commissioner William Regal. But I also we definitely saw lots of comedy stuff with him and less wrestling. Like I did like the pairing of him and Eugene. I thought that
Yeah.
that was really funny because of how serious William Regal is. To have like a guy friggin' Eugene having Eric Bischoff make one of his best like in-ring wrestlers, take care of his nephew with special needs, I thought was hilarious.
You want to know what segment I just recently watched not that long ago? Remember when Eugene was feuding with as weird as it fucking sounds, nobody's gonna believe us unless they actually watch the shit. Eugene or Triple H was feuding with Eugene, and Regal told Eugene to stay in the hotel room. Regal ends up going to lay down after he got fucked up by Triple H. Eugene decides to leave the hotel room, go to the arena, and it turns out Triple H was at the hotel and he beat the holy hell out of William Regal.
Yeah, I remember that.
Classic stuff, man.
The Eugene stuff was so
He's a
good.
PG character. I don't know why they don't fucking bring him back for a while, man. I feel like he'd fit in good.
Yeah, definitely with the 24/7
Imagine
title.
Eugene versus fucking Shinsuke Nakamura.
You never know.
All right, man. The 19th pick overall for SmackDown, Maven, man. And it says, when drafted, Maven was the WWF Hardcore Champion, making the title exclusive to SmackDown. However, Raven would defeat Maven for the championship prior to the brand separation, bringing the title to Raw with him. Didn't work out for Maven, man.
They had all the titles. That's crazy.
And I can't.
And they weren't even 3 hours.
I believe this was before. Was this before or after Maven got a big push and he eliminated the Undertaker during the
Yep, that was Royal Rumble 2002.
Yeah, so he this was after he eliminated Taker from the Rumble, and Taker ended up fucking destroying this man, putting his face to a fucking popcorn machine. Remember that?
Yeah. I also remember, as well with Maven, like it's crazy because he was very underrated. He was always that, solid mid-card guy who was really good in the wrestling ring, but never really had a character
Yep.
like that much of a personality on TV, but his wrestling work was phenomenal. I think, Maven, he didn't really do much with SmackDown because I do remember him, going back to Raw and, just wrestling on Sunday Night Heat until, his release. It's unfortunate that, Maven didn't really, like plan out. Like
I did like the pairing between him and Al Snow though. Kind of like that mentorship, because they met on Tough Enough or whatever, and having Al Snow go with him to SmackDown and sort of team up with him and be like sort of Maven's mentor. I like that quite a bit.
Yeah. So now moving on to the next draft pick here. With the 20th pick overall, Raw selected Lita. She was the first diva drafted and the only diva selected on TV.
Lita was a powerhouse back in the day, man. Team Extreme, there was nothing bigger than the Hardys and Lita back in like 2001. Nothing.
Yeah, with Lita, I can't like I was one of those guys that had Lita over Trish
Yeah.
Stratus.
I mean, they were both phenomenal. I love the feud that they had. I believe Lita's last match in WWE was against Trish Stratus, I believe.
But Maven got picked over Lita? That's the crazy
And Lita,
thing.
but you have to remember, like I said, Lita was the only diva selected on television.
That is crazy. I think, with Raw, it definitely panned out with Lita because she did lots of, memorable moments on Raw. She had the first female main event. She also, had that really good storyline with Snitsky and Kane. I remember with the whole pregnancy thing. I also, enjoyed her work with Edge and that rivalry with Edge and Matt Hardy. And she pretty much was a Raw, diva until she
But I
retired.
remember, I can't remember if it was between 2002 and 2004. I can't exactly remember what year, what date, or any of the
She
specifics.
did have a neck. I
She
know she had
was
a really
she
bad
was
neck
filming
injury.
on a movie, and she ended up doing a stunt that went wrong, and she broke her neck. So she was out for months. Like I said, it was between 2002 and 2004. I can't exactly remember the date. But I know that put a halt on her career for a while. And I believe after she got back is when the whole Edge and Matt Hardy storyline happened because
Yeah, because Lita went to rehab and Edge went to the same rehab, I
yeah,
believe, because they both had neck
yep.
injuries.
But all right. So the next pick, man, and I'm having a hell of a time doing this, man. Blast from the past,
Me too.
The 21st overall pick for SmackDown, Billy Kidman, who is actually currently still with WWE today as a producer.
One of my favorite, most underrated wrestlers in WWE, hands down. Wrestling, period. Billy Kidman was so good. And I remember, his tag team with Paul London. And then, when the backstab there when Billy Kidman, injured Paul London. And then, he was the bad guy. He had the short hair. One of the best, most catchiest theme songs of all time. You can run, but you can't hide. I loved Billy Kidman, and I think him going to SmackDown, where, a lot of the better wrestlers was a great move.
Yeah, and Billy Kidman, my thing with him was he was good in the cruiserweight division, but he didn't really accomplish too much. I remember he was a cruiserweight champion for a while, but outside of that, he didn't really do much. I preferred him when he was in WCW personally because I feel like he accomplished more in ring. You know what I mean? But overall, I enjoyed.
Yeah.
He was the only person up until that point that I saw do a shooting star press. That was his finisher. So it was great every time I got to see that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because Billy Kidman, I think if he had a bigger push, kind of similar to how Gregory Helms had that push in like 2006,
Yep.
2007, I think Billy Kidman could have definitely been a United States champion
Oh,
easily.
absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, so now moving on to the next pick, which this one's kind of funny. Monday Night Raw with the 22nd pick selected Bradshaw.
Yeah, man. Bradshaw up until this point, um, I don't believe APA had like broken up at this point. I think Ron Simmons, Farouk, was out with an injury if I remember correctly. But there was nothing bigger than the Acolyte Production Agency, man. They had some of the best segments on Raw, SmackDown back in the Attitude Era. It was great.
Yeah, because I remember them like splitting up a lot of tag teams because I know later on in the draft, Farouk does get drafted to SmackDown. But then, of course, eventually, because it didn't work out, like with the Dudleys, didn't work out with APA, we had a nice run with APA in 2003, early 2004. And then, of course, they fired Farouk because I believe he was retiring from in ring competition. And then we got the John Bradshaw Layfield character that everybody hated, especially myself. I think that it's crazy how he got drafted to Raw because I felt like he never did anything on Raw when he was a singles competitor. SmackDown is where that man became a main event star.
I find it funny that he went from a beer swelling Texan fucking getting in bar fights to a fucking Wall Street broker.
I know, like, it's absolutely crazy. And, like, it's great because a lot of people, when they get character changes like that, that's like crazy, they usually can't make it work. But he made it work. And the crazy thing about that is, if you look back at Vince McMahon having all the wrestlers in the ring when he says, I'm looking for someone to grab that brass ring, ruthless aggression. Brashaw was on like the apron during that, just as, Brashaw, like where he wasn't really doing much. And then think about it, a couple years later, becomes WWE champion as JBL, the most hated fucking heel of all time.
Remember
in
his
this
feud
era?
with John Cena, and John Cena had Crime Time come out and smash up the limo?
Yeah, that was later on in
That was in like
JBL's
2006,
career.
2007. That was phenomenal.
No, I think that was 2007 around that
Oh, it
time.
might have been.
But yeah.
But the 23rd, the next pick is SmackDown, 23rd,
Michael Jordan.
23rd overall. Tajiri, man. Speaking of Tajiri, and it said when drafted, Tajiri was the WWF Cruiserweight Champion, making the title exclusive to SmackDown. And I do believe it wasn't long after he actually dropped the title to Billy Kidman. But Billy Kidman didn't have the title for that long. He had it for probably 3 months. But I mean, back then with so much talent, that wasn't that long at all.
Yeah, I think, making this decision for WWE was very smart at the time because if Tajiri, he was the Cruiserweight champion. So I think definitely having the Cruiserweight division on SmackDown was a huge plus because SmackDown more focused on the wrestling, Raw focused more on the characters. And with SmackDown, the Cruiserweight division was very entertaining, I felt
Absolutely.
like.
I think this was a...
Could have been booked a little better, but still, it was.
I
thought,
noticed that
pretty good.
majority of the titles went to fucking SmackDown in this draft, man. I'm just now noticing that.
No, I think a lot of them went to
A
Raw.
lot of them went to a lot.
European went to Raw, Intercontinental.
I don't know, man. The hardcore went to
Yeah.
SmackDown, but it then, Maven lost it, and it went
kinda
to
died
Raven,
out.
and then it ended up going back to Raw.
Yeah. So then the next pick, the 24th pick in the draft, Monday Night Raw selected Steven Richards.
What do you have to say about Steven Richards, man? I think this was back when he was
Mr. Sunday Night Heat with the 24th pick. That's crazy to think about because Chris Jericho hasn't got picked yet. Matt Hardy, Raven, Jeff Hardy, friggin' the Hurricane, even Mr. Perfect hasn't even got picked, and Steven Richards got picked before him. That's crazy.
I believe it was in 2004 that when Steven Richards was still on Raw, and when Victoria came in, and remember him and Vic.
She came in in 2002 with him. Because she wrestled at Survivor Series that year.
No. She's not on the she wasn't drafted. So maybe it was
Yeah, I don't think she made her
maybe
debut
it was late
just
2002.
yet.
But I remember, I mean, he went from, the right to censor guy to having long hair and like these pink Speedos. Remember that?
Yeah, here's the thing. My favorite Steven Richards was right to censor, and I feel like, even though he did make Sunday Night Heat watchable because like he would always be a regular on there and like he would be like literally the main event star of Sunday Night Heat. He made that very relevant for a couple years. I just think that the best Steven Richards was right to censor, and it's just crazy to see some of the stars that weren't picked friggin', before him.
Exactly, man. I don't have much to say about it. It was a good pick. It was not the best pick. There's a lot of people I would have picked before him.
Oh hell no! He should have definitely been a little bit more down.
The idea that he got
pick.
picked before somebody like Chris Jericho, the very first undisputed champion.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. That was a horrible draft pick. I don't know what they were thinking.
I mean that's the only one we haven't really agreed on so far. So
Yeah. All right. Now on to number
number 25th
25.
pick for SmackDown and Vince McMahon, we have Y2J, man, the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, Mr. Chris Jericho.
Yeah, Jericho did a lot when he first got drafted to SmackDown. I think that Jericho's career has been way better on Raw, definitely, because we got to see, the character side of Jericho, which is usually the
I
best
feel like
Jericho. His work with, his rivalry with Christian, I thought was really
his
good.
partnership with Christian. Remember how their clothes got stolen on Monday Night Raw and they were running around butt ass naked?
Yeah. Plus his rivalry with Shawn Michaels in 2003 was really good
Was
as
that
well
when
on
Jericho
Raw.
put Michael's head through the Jeritron?
Nope. Nope, that was 2008. I'm talking about WrestleMania
Yeah.
19 when they had that classic.
Yeah, man.
At the time, Jericho did a lot more with the Raw brand. For me, what's shocking is that he got picked at 25, and especially with this 30-year career that he's had, and definitely like to Jerry over Chris Jericho,
Steven Richards over Jericho.
Rikishi over Chris Jericho. That's crazy because I think if we're looking back 20 years ago. 20 years later, Jericho would probably be top 5.
More than likely. I mean, he's done a lot in his career. But back then, like, he was accomplished, but he's not like the legend like he is today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now moving on to the 26th pick, Monday Night Raw selects Matt Hardy.
Yeah, that was a good pick, and if I remember correctly, Jeff Hardy obviously got picked as well for Monday Night Raw, which it didn't. It wasn't until 2004 to where the Hardys actually broke up, and Matt Hardy went and did that.
No, that was 2003.
I thought it was 2004 when he had the whole
Because
Mattitude and he had Shannon
nope,
Moore.
nope, Mattitude version 1, that was 2003.
You
Because I remember him as Cruiserweight Champion going into WrestleMania
you have more
19.
you have more fucking knowledge than this. I remember him like trying.
I'm a We Are Wrestling Maniac.
Remember when he was having segments on SmackDown for fucking weeks. He was like wearing like trying to lose weight or whatever so he'd be able to qualify for a Cruiserweight Championship match. He was like, as almost seemed like every SmackDown he was like doing exercises with wearing trash bags or whatever, and Shannon Moore was trying to be his like health coach and Matt Hardy was trying to lose weight.
Yeah, Matt Hardy definitely did so much more with the SmackDown brand than he did with the Raw brand, I think, in his career from 2002 to, him leaving. I think, his version 1 character was really good. It's unfortunate that, Bubba Ray and Devon couldn't find, a pretty good character or get over. Matt Hardy actually got over with
Yeah,
that.
man.
And I think he made the Cruiserweight Championship for a while very prestigious.
I definitely think so too. So now the number 27th overall pick, man. A pick that I wasn't that expecting. But for SmackDown, we have Ivory, man.
She was really good in the ring, but my question is, where's Trish Stratus?
Trish Stratus is yeah. She was the 46th pick.
Wow. It's crazy to see how the times have changed. Not taking anything away from Ivory. She was always really good, but I don't know why SmackDown even drafted women because they didn't even have a championship on there. So I kind of felt bad for anybody that was on the SmackDown brand that was a woman's wrestler.
But this goes back to what I've been saying all along. Is WWE nowadays, they don't have a stat. Like, everybody on this card is fucking stacked. It's not like that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now moving on to the next pick, the 28th pick overall, Monday Night Raw selected Raven.
And this is where he ended up bringing back the Hardcore Championship too, because he ended up beating Maven. before the separation went into place.
Yes. Here's the thing about Raven. There's really not much to this draft pick because, of course, at the time, Raven, he, left about a year later, went to TNA and did a lot of stuff over there. So there really isn't too much about the whole Raven thing. Because before this whole draft thing, during like the end of the Attitude Era, Raven was, a really key piece to the hardcore division and made that championship very
He was a part of
prestigious.
one of the greatest hardcore matches ever when in WrestleMania 17 with the Big Show and
Yes,
Kane.
Big Show and Kane. Did he
Yeah, I
win
believe
that?
so.
Dude, Raven in 2001 was my
Dude, I
favorite
loved
Raven.
Raven.
Cuz like every freaking like match he was in, like he literally would bring the shopping cart full of weapons. Like he made that, I feel like with him like coming in that Rumble in 2001 made it so
Remember when
entertaining
remember
with all the
remember he
weapons
had
he
that
brought.
storyline or whatever where he had that woman with him, that she was dressed all in black, and she would always help him win when he was the hardcore champion. Remember that?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, Raven, his best work was ECW and WCW, obviously. But yeah, I think the hardcore division was
I
fun
don't
with
feel like he
Raven.
got the kind of recognition that he deserved in WWE. I was wa-
Way
I
too
was
good for his
watching
time.
I was watching an interview actually before we started recording tonight, and he was explaining like why his time in WWE was so sparse and he didn't, propel to the heights that everybody was thinking he was. And it's because Vince McMahon didn't like Raven. He kept asking people, why the fuck did we hire this guy? Vince McMahon was against Raven.
Yeah, which is crazy because looking back now, 20 years, later, Raven accomplished
I know.
so much.
All right, so moving on, man. The 29th overall draft pick for SmackDown, Albert.
Yep, and about like a year later, he would, become A
Mm-hmm.
Train.
That motherfucker. Now he's his name is Matt Bloom. I believe he's a trainer at the Performance Center.
Yeah, he's the head trainer over there. I remember him coming back in like the PG era as Lord Tensai.
That didn't work out too well.
Yeah, but speaking of Albert, he was always a good big man that knew how to work. He was a good, tag team wrestler, mid card guy. And I think the A Train character, I felt like he wasn't
Now
really that
I
long
feel like if
because I
Albert
think
was
he
around
left.
nowadays, like a character or whatever, with the way WWE is, he could have easily been a world champion. Like he's got size, he's got
Yeah,
all that.
yeah, very, very good for
But
his
one of my
time.
favorite outside of the TNA when he was with Trish Stratus and Test, I loved him when he was with X Factor.
X Factor with Justin
Hmm.
Incredible and X Pac. Yes, in 2001. That was an awesome, underrated faction that ended
I
way
loved their
too
fucking
fucking
song,
early.
man. It was fucking great.
Yo, you dealing with the X Factor.
I never wanted. I can't
So
remember
now,
how the lyrics go, but it's good stuff, man.
yeah. So now moving on to the 30th pick in the draft, Raw selected Jeff Hardy. Which, how is Jeff Hardy number
I know, but hey,
30?
man, like I said, Matt Hardy got picked at number 26. Jeff Hardy got picked at number 30. And they kept the Hardy Boys together, man. And then they ended up feuding with Brock Lesnar for a couple of months. And I believe it was late 2002. Matt Hardy ended up going to going to SmackDown, and in 2003, like you said, he started the whole Matt v1. And then Jeff Hardy was obviously spiraling out of control. He was losing to fucking people like Chris Nowinski, and he wasn't out. He was
The only thing with Raw that's very memorable for me with Jeff Hardy was the ladder match with Undertaker
That
around
was
that
a
time.
phenomenal match, man. That was a phenomenal match. I remember that so much because I remember when it was early 2002 when Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy were sort of feuding or whatever. Matt Hardy didn't want anything to do with Jeff, and Jeff started feuding with the Undertaker and started to like piss the dead man off. Remember when when Undertaker threw Jeff Hardy and Lita off of the stage, and Matt Hardy came back the next week and started beating up the Undertaker or whatever, and it sort of like, got the Hardy Boys back together for a couple of months.
Yeah, I just think that around this time, like, they definitely had, like, high hopes for Jeff Hardy, but obviously, they saw more of a star in Matt, but obviously, years later, Jeff would prove everybody
Exactly. Jeff
wrong.
was a WWE champion. Matt Hardy was only the ECW champion, which I don't think it had the same meaning as WWE champion, but it was still prestigious. It was still
2008?
good stuff, man. 2008 was a great year for the Hardys. Number 31,
Yeah, it
man.
was.
The 31st overall draft pick for SmackDown and Vince McMahon, the Hurricane, man. Shane Helms, Gregory Helms, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, which I think at the time, the reason why they decided to put him there is because they wanted, some character on SmackDown because they would, draft a lot of, really good wrestlers, but not that many characters. So they brought the Hurricane in for that. I think the Hurricane was a lot better on Raw because, of course, he had that funny feud with The Rock when The Rock called him
Yep.
the Hamburglar. And then, years later, he would have that tag team with Rosie, and, they would be the superheroes. They had the World Tag Team Championships. And then the best run for the Hurricane was when he went back to SmackDown in, I believe, 2005, 2006 as Gregory Helms. And he had that whole year run as
Yeah, I thought it
Cruiserweight
was like a
champion.
year and a half. It seemed like he had that championship forever, man. He beat fucking everybody. It almost like every single pay-per-view he defended the title and he just fucking demolished everybody.
He was
Very
so
underrated,
good.
I feel like.
Definitely, like, he was like an S tier compared to like a Cruiserweight division that was like
Yep,
B, C
definitely.
tier. So now, with the 32nd pick overall, Raw selected Mr. Perfect.
Yeah, Mr. Perfect, he returned at the Royal Rumble 2002, and sadly, he didn't last that long on the roster. In 2003, he ended up passing away.
In the plane ride to hell, he had an altercation or fight with Brock Lesnar, I believe, on that plane ride. And like it didn't really work out his second run with the WWE, unfortunately. Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, one of the best in-ring technician wrestlers out there, one of the best characters in the 80s and the 90s. I think, it was really cool. Like, I think everybody just remembers his 2002 run. They don't even remember the run. They just remember him having that
Yeah, I
Royal
remember
Rumble
him coming back at the
surprise.
Rumble, man, and I remember that Rumble very vividly because you had Maven eliminate the Undertaker. You had Triple H come back, and after the fucking quad surgery, he fucking came back and won the Rumble match, and you had a no holds barred match between Ric Flair and Vince McMahon. Like, I just remember that Royal Rumble very vividly. That was a stacked card.
Yeah, it was.
I gotta open my phone. So the number 33rd overall draft pick for SmackDown in 2002, Al Snow, man. We mentioned him earlier. He was sort of the mentor for Maven when Maven, first entered WWE after Tough Enough. I don't feel like Al Snow, outside of like mentoring Maven, I don't feel like for this run he really accomplished much.
Yeah, Al Snow, they mostly had him in WWE for Tough
Pretty much.
Enough,
I
I
mean,
think.
I liked him. I feel like it was a good fit. I liked the mentorship that he gave to Maven. It sort of gave.
I loved his work more in the Attitude Era than
I
Ruthless
mean,
Aggression.
does anybody want some head?
What does everybody want? Head. What does everybody
Name
need?
one kid that didn't
Head.
want a fucking head back then. Not even knowing what the fuck that shit meant until years later.
Hey, that's like the highest jobbers will ever be was with when Al Snow was, leading the
Dude,
job
remember when Al
squad.
Snow had that fucking awesome feud with Big Boss Man, and Big Boss Man stole his Chihuahua?
Yes. hmm Yeah, so now with the 34th pick, Raw selects
Yep,
Spike
and this
Dudley.
caused Spike a little bit after that. He ended up teaming up on a regular basis with Bubba Ray, and they had some good matches together. I felt like Spike, man, he was a ragdoll. He got fucking chokeslammed outside of the ring, through the ring, on top of the ring. He got taken out
Yeah.
every which way somebody can get taken out, man.
Yeah, before James Ellsworth and Colin Delaney, there was a guy named Spike
Yeah, man.
Dudley. My favorite
I'm actually
Dudley,
friends with him on
honestly.
Facebook. He's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, so with this pick, obviously Spike, in my opinion, during Ruthless Aggression, he did a lot more with the SmackDown brand. He was that, serious heel at the time, had a nice cruiserweight championship run, I believe, in 2004. And like with Spike Dudley, I felt like definitely they could have done a lot more with him, especially like when they decided to stop the hardcore division. I felt like they definitely could have done more with that before getting rid of
Remember
the
the push
title
that
with Spike.
I don't even necessarily want to call it a push, but remember the fucking demolition they put him in when he was when he was dating Molly Holly or whatever. And remember that episode of SmackDown where Stone Cold Steve Austin, it was around the time he had to defend the the WWF title at the time in a triple threat match or whatever, and he was going around SmackDown trying to get all kinds of petitions, and he called Molly Holly a bimbo, and Spike Dudley ripped up his fucking contract. 35th draft pick for SmackDown and Vince McMahon, Lance Storm, man.
Lance Storm, one of the best in-ring technicians out there. And it's crazy because I felt like he never really did much on the SmackDown brand. I know they had like lots of promise with him because I mostly remember him doing the whole Canada thing
I
on
remember
Raw.
when he was with the Un-Americans. I remember when he technically wasn't he didn't have a WWF contract or whatever, and he every week he would, go to ask him, beg and plead or whatever for a match to try and prove himself worthy to be a WWF superstar. And I remember Stone Cold Steve Austin telling him how boring he was. And I remember during one of his matches, Stone Cold
The
went
dancing.
out to the Titantron, the ramp or whatever. He brought a pillow or whatever, and he started to lay down on the ramp, fucking sleeping during. And then he started fucking taking the microphone and fucking snoring, and to solidify how boring Lance Storm was.
I need to rewatch that. But yeah, when it comes to Lance Storm, we all can definitely agree his work in WCW and ECW was way better than
He was
anything he did
entertaining
in
as
the
fuck, and I remember,
WWE.
do you remember the episode? I think it was the
Mhm.
episode of Raw when he got interrogated by Steve Austin about who was it who ran over Triple H, I want to say.
That's another guy I'm just saying that was way too good for his time as Lance Storm because if it was wrestling today, Lance Storm could be a world
Definitely.
champion
I mean, he's
easily.
trained some of the top talent that's in the business today.
Yeah, that Storm
He
Wrestling
works for
Academy,
Impact.
seriously. But now, yeah. So now with the 36th pick overall, Raw selected D'Lo
Yeah, I don't really feel
Brown.
like it. I don't really feel I feel like after 2000, I feel like D'Lo Brown sort of fizzled out and he didn't really accomplish much. He was more or less like enhancement talent, like he would just job to people, make people look really good.
Yeah, he really wasn't changing anything
I feel like
about
his career
D'Lo
went downhill
Brown.
once the whole draw situation happened because he's the one that paralyzed Draws. Not obviously on purpose, but he gave Draws the pile driver or whatever, broke his neck, and he's been paralyzed ever since. So I feel like after that incident, I feel like his career just it was on a high and then it just went down.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to elaborate?
Oh, nothing with D'Lo Brown. No, there's not much really he did after the
All
Attitude
right, the
Era, I
number
think.
37th overall draft pick for Vince McMahon and SmackDown, Diamond Dallas Page DDP. Hey, it's me. It's me. It's
Bang!
DDP.
It's DDP.
Yeah, man.
That's what I'm talking about. Another guy that WWE misused, definitely, that they got from, the buyout with WCW. I enjoyed the stuff he did, like, when he first came in WWF with the whole, invasion thing, with the whole
That was
Undertaker
great.
and Sarah thing, the whole stocking thing, but after that, it's like, he kinda fell off the card and didn't really do much. We obviously know that nothing will ever compare to his work that he did in
I mean, he came
WCW.
in strong, man. He came in feuding with the Undertaker, stalking the Undertaker's wife, or whatever. And Undertaker beat him into a bloody fucking pulp on numerous occasions. Um, and then he went from that, and then like in like 2000 around this time, 2002, he was sort of that I don't even know what you would classify it as. He would always be like smiling, whatever, and he would get some kind of a partnership or mentorship to Christian because Christian was always losing, and DDP was like, "Hey, all you got to do is smile." Or something like that. Like remember that gimmick going into WrestleMania 18?
Yes, I do. I remember that. So now with the 38th pick overall, Monday Night Raw selected Sean
Yeah, his run
Stasiak.
wasn't that memorable. I don't remember anything that he did, to be honest with you. Pretty
The
much.
shits.
So should we move on?
Yes, I think
I
so.
do feel like Sean Stasiak. He had the look, but he had the personality of an eggplant. So didn't have the whole package, man.
The shits.
The number 39th draft lottery pick for SmackDown, Tory Wilson.
Out of all the women during the Ruthless Aggression era, I think Tory Wilson definitely did the most with her opportunities on SmackDown.
I
She was
feel
like the
like the
face
best
of the
thing that she
brand.
did though was with Dawn Marie, and Dawn Marie was like sort of like being like her stepmom, and Dawn Marie was like banging Tory Wilson's dad or whatever.
Yeah, or no, I think wasn't it Tory
No, it
Wilson
was
banging
Dawn
like Don
Marie
Marie's dad?
being Tory Wilson's stepmom.
Oh, okay. I don't know. But with Tori Wilson, definitely like obviously like her work with SmackDown has always been better with Raw. It just sucks that they never really had a women's championship on the SmackDown brand until like
I know.
2008. So now with the 40th pick overall, Raw selected
Yeah,
Terry.
she was around this time she was more of a backstage interviewer. She wasn't like in ring talent or anything like that. So I mean, there's really not much to say. I liked her when she was with the Hardy Boys, and then I believe it was at No Way Out 2000 or something. She turned on the Hardys and went with Edge and Christian or whatever. Um, she obviously was in a long relationship with Goldust. She did stuff in the Attitude Era, or whatever. But around 2002, she was more of a backstage personality, so she didn't really do much.
Yeah. She didn't really do much, so it didn't really affect anything, her being picked at 40. Just crazy that friggin' Trish Stratus still hasn't got
I
picked
know.
yet in this draft.
All right, so now we have the 41st overall pick for
Yes,
SmackDown,
one of my
man.
favorites.
Vince McMahon chose Scotty to Hottie. What do you think about that choice?
Oh my god. One of my favorites back in the Attitude Era. I love Too Cool, especially Scotty Too Hottie. Like, even his singles run, I still loved him. And his song, of course. I play that
You're
song
gonna have
every
to
day before I go into
you're gonna have
work.
to make me
I love
fucking wear
Scotty
a
Too Hottie.
fucking a man thong and put on bleach my hair blonde and put on fucking some sunglasses and start dancing for you, man.
Man, Scotty Too Hottie was one of my favorites. I think Scotty Too Hottie was more popular during the Attitude Era than he was during the Ruthless Aggression era. I know him and Rikishi had that SmackDown Tag Team Championship run in like early 2004 before, he left the company. I felt like, it really didn't affect anything because Sky Tuhati was just more known for the
I
work he
feel
did
like once
during the
Brian
Attitude
Christopher
Era.
left and once Scotty 2 Hotty got, his singles run or whatever, he didn't really capitalize on it. He didn't really the booking for him absolutely sucked.
Man, because Too Cool, that's like what made the Scotty Too Hottie character like become so hot. Just like the Grandmaster Sexay character made Brian
Exactly.
Christopher so hot. So now with the 42nd pick overall, Raw selected
Yeah, Jacqueline was a
Jacqueline.
badass back in the early 2000s, but I feel like I feel like
Way
around
too
this
good for her
time, like
time.
she skyrocketed and then she just fell off a little bit along the way. Maybe there wasn't that much competition for her, so her matches weren't that good. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I felt like she was definitely way too good for her time. I know she did a lot of Tough Enough
Yeah,
stuff, I believe, as well. So that's why she wasn't really like on TV that much because she was helping Al Snow
Al
and like she was
Snow,
putting all these
Taz,
friggin'
and
newbies in their
Jacqueline. Yep.
place. Yeah, but Jacqueline was real like
Yeah,
way too good for
definitely.
her time.
So the 43rd overall draft pick lottery for the WWE lottery in 2002, man, Vince McMahon at SmackDown chose Stacy Keibler. Again, like she was good in
Yeah.
2001 when the invasion stuff was going on or whatever. It felt like she was, a huge part of the story, especially in the women's division. But around 2002, I mean, it didn't feel like she really did anything. I know wasn't she Vince McMahon's like love interest or like was secretary or something like that, or was that somebody else?
I think so. I think there's some storyline with that, I believe. But I just remember a lot of
Or
her work more on
yes,
Raw when she was, the
yes,
valet for
and then
Test.
Test and Scott Steiner started feuding or whatever, and Scott Steiner won her services, and Test was like sort of playing the abusive asshole.
Yep, I remember that's, like, the most I remember from Stacy Keibler. She didn't really do much with WWE. I know she was more known for her
I
work
know.
in WCW.
Now she's known for banging Batman, George Clooney.
Nice. With the 44th pick overall, Monday Night Raw selected Gold
Dust. Yeah,
Dust.
man. I remember his Raw run, man. Especially when they paired him up with Booker T. Fucking classic, dude.
Some
And
of
then
the
he
funnest
got he
stuff
got
that they did,
electrocuted, and he started
seriously.
like having fucking Tourette's or whatever. And I remember like they had remember Booker it showed Booker T. He was like he met this girl or whatever, and it fucking showed them like almost sleeping together. And he turned on the lights, and fucking Goldust was next to him. It's just, dude, the funniest shit ever, dude.
Yes, it was, and I think that, like, this was a great pick for them 20 years ago because it really created some of the funniest stuff that we get to look back at on Raw, especially with Goldust and, Booker T, and then he had Mini
And
Dust,
then
which
Mini
I thought
Booker
was
T.
hilarious. Great work. Mini Booker. Such good
I
stuff.
said this before, man. I'm gonna say it again. I can't believe this is the same company that produces the bullshit that we watch today. I'd much rather this. Anyway, man, the
Oh,
45th
easily.
pick in the draft lottery for SmackDown, we have Christian. Christian, I don't remember much of his run. I remember
Damn.
I don't think it lasted long because I remember around 2002, 2003 he went to maybe even 2004 he went to Raw, and that's when he started pairing himself up with Jericho, and then he went with Test and Lance Storm with
Un-Americans
yep,
with
the Un-Americans,
Test and
and they had that
Storm.
feud with Kane and Bradshaw, and I remember that.
Yeah, plus, Christian even had that, he also had
Yep.
Tyson Tomko too at
But
the
that was
time
all Raw stuff. I
before
don't
he
really
left.
remember his SmackDown run all
Uh,
that often.
yeah, exactly. I feel like Christian was way better off on Raw. That's where he became, that superstar that was very close to grabbing the brass ring several times, but never could really do that. I felt like in 2005, it was the time to make Christian at least a world champion on SmackDown when they did the draft. But of course, they didn't believe in him being a main event guy, so he decided to leave WWE and go to TNA to prove to them that he could be a main event worthy talent,
Absolutely.
which is what he did. I definitely remember more stuff that he did on Raw with the Intercontinental Championship, making that very prestigious.
And Stone Cold Steve Austin calling him the creepy little bastard.
Yeah, Christian was awesome. Because like for me, my favorite Christian was definitely had to be 2004
Yep, definitely.
Intercontinental
That
Champ.
he had some of the greatest feuds, and he ended up aligning himself with Chris Jericho, and they had some of the cool, like, funniest segments. They were like, it almost seemed like every week on Raw they were trying to figure out creative ways to get Stone Cold Steve Austin fired from being the GM. It was just
Yeah,
hilarious.
I think definitely Christian. I liked him more, a little bit more serious side of him, but like it's crazy because, like we said with some of the other picks in this draft, like looking back now, years ago, friggin' like like now, Christian would probably be top friggin' 10 easily.
Absolutely, man.
So now
WWE was so stacked
it
back
was
then in
very
2002.
stacked, but still, I just can't believe Christian was 45th. But now another one that I'm very shocked about: the 46th pick in this WWE 2002 draft, Raw selected Trish Stratus.
Hey man, it's the woman of your dreams, the woman that you've been asking for this entire time, and she's finally appearing, man.
I can't believe it because if it was now, Trish Stratus would probably be top 5 in this draft.
Easily. She had a really good run,
I can't
man.
believe Terry got picked over her.
I know, that's amazing, right? Trish Stratus, I feel like 2002 is when she, started to get momentum, and she started to become really like the main event diva that everybody knows her for. In 2001, she was sort of on the come up, whatever. She had that, stint with
Stephanie
Vince McMahon,
McMahon.
whatever,
Remember
and
that match, No Way
Stephanie
Out,
McMahon,
01?
Stephanie McMahon, and then she had something going on with Vince McMahon. Remember, Vince McMahon wanted her to kiss his ass, and then on SmackDown, The Rock ended up showing up, and Rikishi ended up Vince McMahon ended up joining his own club and kissing
Oh,
Rikishi's
that was
ass.
great.
But I don't feel like it was until 2002, 2003 to where she really like propelled herself to be like in the main event
Yeah, and I
scene.
think definitely, Raw was definitely the best decision, especially because, they had the women's world champion over there. SmackDown didn't have a championship for the women at the time. So I think, Trish Stratus going to Raw, she definitely, became this superstar, this once in a lifetime generational female, role model. And I think, her main event with Lita was a really good one. Her feud with Lita, let alone, was very good around this time. The stuff she did with Mickey James in 2005 and
Yeah,
2006 was really good. Trish Stratus was really the GOAT, one of the best on Raw.
absolutely, man. So we've gone to that time, man. The 47th
Woo.
overall pick for SmackDown. Test. Don't really remember his
He
run.
did
I
more
don't
on
remember
Raw,
him like.
I think.
Yeah, he's another one of those guys that he didn't really. He probably did like a lot of stuff on SmackDown, whatever. It's just I can't think of anything like memorable at the time at this moment. But
Test was very good for his time.
I remember him
Too good.
like being on Raw and being with the Un-Americans, and then a little while after when he cut his hair or whatever and became the abusive boyfriend of Stacy Keibler, he ended up teaming up and aligning himself with Scott Steiner when Scott came in, and Scott Steiner and him had a couple great matches. Scott ended up winning the services of Stacy Keibler, and it began a whole whirlwind of events for them. But as far as Test's run on SmackDown, to me, not that memorable. Maybe he accomplished some things that I'm just not thinking about at the moment.
Yeah,
But he had more time spent on Raw.
definitely, in my opinion, Test was too good for his time. With the 48th pick, Raw selected Justin Credible.
He didn't really do much, man. Like he was successful when he was a part of X Factor with Albert and X Pac. Outside of that, man, he was pretty much like a jobber,
Yeah, definitely.
going for like the cruiserweight championship for a while, and just not really, maybe the hardcore title, but not really memorable. I don't really
The
remember
best
anything that he
stuff with
did.
Justin Credible is his ECW work, hands down.
Yeah, definitely, which you can watch on WWE Network.
Peacock, $9.99.
Make sure you guys have the cock on your television sets. Anyway, man, the 49th overall pick for SmackDown, Farouk.
Damn. So obviously around this time they broke up the APA, and I don't really remember Farouk doing anything around this time with the singles run.
I don't, man. He was good when he was with the APA.
APA and
Um,
Nation of Domination.
Nation of Domination was great. They had The Rock. They had Mark Henry, I think, was involved with it. Godfather. It was good. It was good fucking stuff, man.
Yeah, there wasn't really much that they did with Farouk.
And then, in his later years, Farouk, all he would do is show up every so often and go, "Damn!"
Damn!
You know.
With the 50th pick now overall, Raw selected Big Boss Man.
Yeah, man. Again, in the Attitude Era, he was good. I remember his feud with Al Snow, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah, it sucks. He died
But
young.
but yeah, he was only 33, I think. He died of a heart attack. But his run in 2002, man, I don't really like.
He didn't
It's
really
not
do
that
he didn't really
memorable.
do much. What I remember Big Boss Man from was the Attitude Era with being, part of the corporation as like Vince McMahon's, bodyguard, right-hand man.
Remember the feud with Big Show, and Big Show's dad supposedly passed away,
Yeah.
and at Big Show's dad's funeral, and I killed Joe Daddy.
Yeah,
It's fucking nuts.
because the thing is like Hard Times Big Boss Man was really cool, but like I love Attitude Era Big Boss Man the most for me. He looked like a
Absolutely.
fucking legitimate badass. Like he was the Shield before the Shield was the thing.
I know. You think that's where they got the idea from?
Hey, maybe.
So the 51st, man, we're almost done. We made it close to the finish line, man. The 51st pick for SmackDown, Taz. I think around this time he, transitioned more into being a color commentator instead of, an in-ring
Yeah, because I
competitor.
think his
He would
career
get
ended pretty early
he
from an
would have
injury.
like yeah, he would have like physical roles every so often or whatever. But as far as being a full-time athlete or a full-time in-ring competitor, he was more or less a color commentator back in 2002 with Michael Cole on SmackDown. Until his when did he leave? When did he leave SmackDown? Like 2007, 2008,
Yeah, because he did stuff with
somewhere around there.
ECW, I remember. And then he
Yeah, so
went to TNA for a little bit.
he left some time around there. I mean, I feel like the way Pat McAfee and Michael Cole is now is how Taz and Michael Cole used to be. They used to play off each other really well,
Mhm.
and that was like the most enjoyable part about watching SmackDown back in the
Yeah, it
day.
just sucks that Taz's career ended so early in the wrestling business. When like he didn't really get to have that full WWE run. He did for a couple years, but my favorite Taz obviously ECW hands down. But
Yep.
with the SmackDown pick, hey, we got some really good years with him on commentary, which was cool because I really like the combination: Michael Cole, Taz, and then you had Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler on Raw.
Yeah, man. Like Taz is up there with the best when it comes to commentary. Like when I hear him whenever he does like AEW or whatever, and like AEW Dark and Dark Elevation, whatever.
Nostalgia
It just
feels.
It brings me back to like old school SmackDown, man. I fucking love it.
Now, with the 52nd pick overall, Monday Night Raw selected Tommy Dreamer.
Tommy Dreamer, he was a big deal in ECW, but I feel like once he came to WWE, it was a whole different ball game. There was so much competition. I feel like he was one of those guys that got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, and I think definitely they put him on Raw because of the Hardcore Championship at the time. He did do some fun stuff with that title, but the best work with Tommy Dreamer is obviously ECW, and he was like very lost in the shuffle until WWE tried doing their own ECW with those one night stands in 2005 and then 2006, and then it became a brand, and then Dreamer won the ECW championship.
Didn't he have some run-ins with CM Punk in ECW?
Yeah, he did a lot of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. But Tommy Dreamer, I mean, the dude's a legend, but he just didn't get booked properly. Just like a lot of these guys. Um, the number 53rd overall draft pick for Vince McMahon in SmackDown, Hardcore Holly. Again, he was a great competitor in the Attitude Era, and I don't remember much about 2002, 2003. I remember he
I
hurt his neck at
yes,
one point and he was
Brock
out
Brock
for a
Lesnar
while.
hurt his neck, and then I remember Hardcore Holly versus Brock at Rumble 2004. That's, like, the only thing,
Yeah,
because I know, like, Hardcore Holly did a lot of stuff in the mid cards and more velocity and heat, because he was always
yep.
that veteran in the locker room.
I don't feel like he was the same after he broke his neck. It almost
Mhm.
seemed like he was legitimately hardcore back in like the early 2000s, and then once he broke his neck, it's almost like he was very cautious about what he did. You know,
Yeah, and definitely, like, his best work was obviously the Attitude Era, like, hands down, but, I really did like the feud that he had with Brock Lesnar around 2003, 2004. I thought that
yeah,
it was very different at the time.
I do remember. I believe, I believe he came back almost a year later and started beating. I remember him beating the hell out of Brock Lesnar in the middle of one of Brock's matches or whatever, trying to get revenge for Brock breaking his neck.
Yeah, I think
I
Survivor
remember
Series
that very.
2003.
I remember that very vividly.
Yeah, so now with the 54th pick overall, Raw selected Hardcore Holly's cousin, Crash Holly.
Yeah, broke up the Holly cousins,
Man,
man.
rest
I
in
mean,
peace, man. Way too young.
yeah, he passed away at age 34, I believe.
My
He
favorite
got
hardcore
hard.
champion of all time.
Dude, he has some of the most classic hardcore matches on the planet, especially like the 24/7 rule. We saw him get beat up in airports. We saw him get beat up at fucking like that Chuck E. Cheese kind of
Mhm.
place or whatever. Like this dude would
Circus,
get beat up.
everywhere.
He would get beat up fucking everywhere, dude. That's what I'm saying. The WWE, to make it more interesting, instead of just having the superstars run around backstage chasing the 24/7 title, they should bring back the hardcore title. Obviously, they can dumb it down to make it somewhat PG, but it still has hardcore rules along with it. I think it'd be a little bit more exciting, man.
Yeah, but obviously around this time, Crash Holly didn't really have much going on at the time because his best stuff was a couple years ago before this draft with the Attitude Era and the Hardcore Championship. 24/7 rule.
Yep, exactly, man. But next, man, the 55th overall draft pick for SmackDown and Vince McMahon in the 2002 draft. I'm gonna reiterate, like we said at the beginning of this. If you guys want to go back and watch the actual show, it's on the cock, man. It's on the Peacock, March 25th, 2002. Search up Monday Night Raw. Anyway, man, we're almost done. The 55th overall draft pick for SmackDown, we have Val Venus.
Hello, ladies.
And again, I feel like this guy got lost in the shuffle. Like he did good. I want to say in 2003 maybe when it was around the time he cut his hair. I remember he sort of took a heel turn and he was pretty good, but not that memorable compared to when he was even with Right to Censor, back in like 2000 when he was feuding with Jeff Jarrett and stuff like
Val
that.
Venus's best work was definitely Attitude Era, but definitely around this time he was a regular for Velocity and Heat. I remember him mostly on Heat, and one of my funniest favorite moments that I feel like we really don't talk about often was when Shelton Benjamin had his mom, and then she shot that needle right in friggin' Val Venus's ass. Do you remember that? I loved when Shelton had his mom. That was awesome. That was some awesome shit.
You think that was really his mom?
No, that wasn't really his mom, but like the character.
Yeah.
But yeah, Val Venus didn't really do much around this time. He was just, a regular on Heat and Velocity. But now with the 56th pick in the 2002 draft, Ric Flair selected with his last pick, Mighty Molly.
Yeah, she she did okay. It wasn't she was with Hurricane for a little while, and then obviously Hurricane didn't last that long because he transformed himself into Gregory Helms. But I feel like he did pretty good.
Yeah, she also, made a character change around the time into Molly Holly, which was, a really good heel. I know a lot of people couldn't stand her, and she did some really good work at the time during the Ruthless Aggression era. I think she was one of the most underrated divas in the division. And I remember, WrestleMania 20 when she got her hair cut from, Victoria, and she was always like the one that was like anti-diva. Like she couldn't stand Trish Stratus.
She was wearing like white granny panties or whatever, and remember like all the bra and panty matches she would be in, and she would fucking just have like these like underwear that like your fucking grandmother would wear and shit.
Yeah. I think definitely Molly Holly was like really good for her time, and this was like one of the picks that like you look back like years later, like damn, you could have definitely put her up there a little bit more. Not top 10, but like she could have been at like in the 30s or the 20s.
Yeah, man. So the very last pick of the draft, obviously not every single draft that we did speak about was on television. A lot of it they had obviously WWE or WWF.com back in the day, to where a lot of the draft picks were made there. Smackdown picked Perry Saturn, man. It doesn't.
He didn't even do. He didn't do shit.
It doesn't say here whether they drafted Moppy or not, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, his stuff in the Attitude Era is probably the best. He didn't do anything during around this time.
And it says right here to close out this, picks 1 through 20 were made live on Raw and TNT. Picks 21 through 57 were conducted over at WWF.com. Steve Austin signed with Raw on April 1st, 2002 edition of Raw, following advice from Mr. McMahon and Ric Flair. Austin ended up giving both men a Stone Cold Stunner as well. On June 10th, 2002 edition of Raw, Vince McMahon became the sole owner of World Wrestling Entertainment after the WWF was court-ordered to change their name when he defeated Flair in a no-holds-barred match.
I do remember that. I'm not going to lie. My favorite time with authorities was Eric Bischoff as the GM of Raw, Teddy Long for SmackDown. That was the best, I thought. And like I felt like that was when Raw, and that was when it was SmackDown versus Raw. That was the good shit right there. But anything else before we close off this special episode of the We Are Wrestling Talk Show?
I'll tell you what, man. This was a blast. Let us know if you guys enjoy this, man. I love being, going back and watching, old classic stuff from my childhood. It's just phenomenal, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you guys do enjoy these and you want more We Are Wrestling Talk shows like this, we're always willing to try to change things. This is why we did this special Blast from the Past episode this week for the talk show for you guys, the We Are Wrestling Maniacs. Let us know in the comment section below what some of your favorite moments were during the Ruthless Aggression era. But
if there is any classic show that you guys would like us to review, talk about on the show, man, feel free to let us know in the comment section below, or you guys can fucking get a hold of us on our social media accounts. I mean, if you guys want it, we will give it to you, man. We're like
we could do what ifs. There's a lot of things that we can do. Definitely talking about the past, and it doesn't even have to be just Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression. You know, we could talk about friggin' stuff in 2010s and even, you know, now if you guys really want us to. But definitely let us know in the comment section below. If you guys enjoyed this week's episode of the We Are Wrestling Talk Show, make sure to smash that like button now. If you're not a We Are Wrestling Maniac yet already, the best way to support this channel is by hitting that subscribe button now, turning on the post notifications. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers. When we get there, we will be doing a giveaway for one.
Donnie will be giving away his house, so look out for it, man. The announcement will be coming soon.
Go fuck yourself. Links down in the description below. You can go follow Danny over on his social medias and, of course, you know, his reaction channel, Danny Huckins. And you can also go subscribe over to his watch along and wrestling vlog channel, Danny H Vlogs. All the links are down in the description below. You can go follow me on my social medias and also my 2 other YouTube channels, DBTV, Nothing But Basketball Content, and Best One Network, where there's just literally anything. Links are down in the description below. But, of course, to all the We Are Wrestling Maniacs out there worldwide, we'll see you guys next week with another episode of the We Are Wrestling Talk Show. Because, of course, you already know, we are taking over. Peace.